Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I always love being joined by multipreneurs because there's so many things that go into running, owning, operating, and growing multiple businesses at the same time. And I think it forces every multipreneur to be very disciplined, very organized, very strategic. And that's why I'm so excited for all of us to learn from today's guest. Her name is Andrea Finck. Andrea, I love the way she sums up how her three businesses interact together because, as she says, we help people reclaim their most precious resource, their time. Now, all three of her businesses are focused on helping people who are busy or overwhelmed organize, manage, and oversee their home and personal affairs. Her three businesses, just tell you a little bit about them. At Lightsome, they deliver expert legacy and digital organization, private property services, and estate administration for anyone tasked with managing the end-of-life affairs of another. Many of their services can be done virtually, so it's so cool to see how Andrea supports people all across the country and all across the world through Lightsome. At her other company, Watch Madison, soon to be Watch Wisconsin, which says a lot about her expansion plans, they provide curated concierge, home management, and certified home watch services for lake and luxury homeowners while they are away. Think about all those snowbirds, vacation homeowners, and travelers. And finally, at Finding Flow Feng Shui, they help people improve the energy flow in their home or office to support their well-being and goals. And I'm so excited. Andrea's got such an incredible background. This is someone who's so well-versed in all things business. Her professional career has built onto all of her entrepreneurial endeavors. So I'm excited about this one. I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Andrea Finck. All right, Andrea, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I am just thrilled to be here. Or I should say, I'm so excited to be here.
I appreciate it. Andrea, honestly, I get so much excitement from talking to entrepreneurs like you, especially in your case. You have such a cool background that's led to all the things that you're doing. So take us beyond the bio. Who's Andrea? How did you start doing all these cool things?
Yeah. I often tell people that my career is more like a mountain road than an interstate highway, right? Lots of twists and turns and setbacks and switchbacks and things like that. So, I've been in the corporate field my whole life and have always had this inkling of that there's something more for me and there's something better. And all of my businesses have come from what I call take stock moments. And we all have take stock moments in life. Probably a really common one that people think about is New Year's resolutions, right? It just means, what are you doing? You're taking stock of what's in your life and where are you going and what's going on. You have something that you call it, I forget what it's called, Brian, but you actually have a phrase that you use and that is about these moments where we switch things up. I think it's like personal attribution or something that I've heard you say on other podcasts. But really, all of my businesses were born out of take stock moments where I really had to stop and think about what was important to me. And actually, as I was preparing for today, I thought about it. I actually have had 4 businesses. I just sold one of them and I don't have that anymore. But they all came out of either my mom. 2 of my businesses were born out of my mom passing away. Another was just really born out of take stock of, did I want to continue with another business or continue my business or grow it, right? And then Lightsome just came out of a take stock moment of am I really going to help people and my own personal experiences of loss. And so, they all have come to me through not wanting to start a business per se, but just having the opportunity and having those ideas come to me. I was in a corporate setting and was doing some personal branding exercises, and we heard the term entrepreneur. The definition of an entrepreneur is really somebody who's always looking for a better way to do something. And I was like, huzzah, that is me. I am always looking for a better way to do things. And so all of my businesses have just really come from my personal passions of helping people. And I love everything to do with real estate and design and build. And so I've just combined all these like superpowers of organization and taking care of people and loving homes, design, and home management, and rolled them all into business.
Yeah, I love that overview for so many reasons, Andrea, especially because you call it taking stock. In my head, I often use the term of I need to take inventory. Every single week I go on a coffee date with myself where I take inventory of life, of businesses, and it just forces you to take that step back. I'm going to call both you and I out together though, Andrea, because we buck the trend of a very common piece of business advice, which is everybody says, only focus on one thing. I can't help myself. I want to help so many people that all these ideas end up in multiple businesses in my ecosystem. And I would actually argue that is part of my superpowers, is the fact that I am operating in different industries and different business models, serving different types of people. I steal ideas and I apply them universally across my entire ecosystem. I find that to be the case with so many multipreneurs. So Andrea, I'm going to use your insights to shed some light on that topic for our listeners, because I would imagine there's so many universal truths that you found, so many patterns that you've identified across businesses that individually makes each and every one of those businesses better.
Yeah. I have a saying, it's called stick to your core business. And what that means is it doesn't mean being tunnel visioned. It doesn't mean being rigid. What it really means is, what are you really good at? I think a lot of people say, what problem are you trying to solve? And I look at it this way. What can I do to make somebody's life easier, better, or make something better? And so everything that I do, and then I sort of wrap it around my purpose, which is really caring for people and making their lives better and caring for homes. So all of my businesses, one way or another, have this thread of organization, caring for people, advocacy, and how to make people's lives better, right? We give people back their time, and so all of our businesses are like that. I mean, we could start a cleaning company tomorrow. It's just what is that main thread? Because I don't care how much money you have or you don't have, no one gets more time.
Yeah, it's true. And I'm just going to use that as a natural segue to talk about time, because that's the most precious. And Andrea, it's funny. I do find this to be the case, is that the busier I am, the more that I get done, because I have to be way more disciplined with my time. And so when I'm driving, I'll think about Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur. I'll also think about our nonprofit through entrepreneurship. And I know that nonprofits are so near and dear to your head as well, and so near and dear to your heart. And all of these things, I find that ideas beget other ideas, and momentum starts a flow of momentum across the board. How are you managing that time? Because I find my mind always wanting to work. I'm super curious to hear what it's like in your universe.
Yeah, monkey mind. I don't know anybody who doesn't struggle with that, right? We're idea people. And I think that there's a couple things. One is that I always let my intuition guide me. And what I really find is that I have to find a way to busy part of my mind. In fact, I came up with Watch Madison while shoveling snow. So those repetitive things, or where you hear about shower ideas, as really making one part of your mind busy so that the other part can actually have flow. And that's where your intuition comes from, and that's where these great ideas come from. That's why people say they're shower ideas, or where you're just doing something repetitive. And so, that's what I just rely on more than anything, is just my intuition to guide me. And then you just really have to prioritize and find what's really going to be closest to what your truth is.
Yeah, and whenever I talk to multipreneurs, Andrea, it's fun for me to share what works for me behind the scenes, because obviously, we all evolve. Nothing that I do today is the way that it was 5 years ago. That said, one thing that I found that really works on my side is batch productivity. So for example, you and I are chatting on a Tuesday, and truth be told, taking everyone behind the scenes of this show, all my interviews take place on a Tuesday. Just Tuesdays, I'm in Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast mode. That's all I do. Other days of the week, I have different focuses. That structure works for me, but also kind of having that flexibility to, on a Friday, if I don't feel like following that structure, I don't follow that structure. What's the structure look like in the way you organize your days, weeks, months, and quarters?
Honestly, I think I have 8 calendars, and at least 5 emails. So it really is just managing logistics. I think it's really interesting what I observe from other people is that the struggle of most of the entrepreneurs like ourselves, or especially multipreneurs, is that most people start out as what I call OEOs, only executive officers, right? And what we all want to be are CEOs, and which is the chief executive officer, not the only one. And so you really do have to really think in buckets and think in times. And for me, it's really giving myself time away from things. Like you said, the way that you approach it is a batch. For me, I really do have to allocate certain times of the day for myself and what works for me. And also knowing that in my business, things kind of go wonky, and I have to be able to just really be able to shift and prioritize what's most important. And so what I really focus on are, what do I really need to do sort of short term? What do I need to get done today? And then, you always have to spend some time thinking about the future and where things are going to go. And I do think that a lot of us as entrepreneurs, like, it's a very vulnerable, it's a very personal thing. And we don't want people to judge us because we're going to change course or do something like that. And I think it's okay to say, we can change course, we can evolve. We evolve out of making mistakes. I certainly have done most of, that's where most of my growth has come from. And so I really think it is having a system. Having a system that works for you, that allows you to align with the way that your brain thinks.
I love the way you answered that, Andrea. I don't think we have that conversation often enough, publicly at least, about the fact that as entrepreneurs, let's face it, we're people at the end of the day, and we are somewhat concerned. We do think about the way that other people interpret those twists and turns, which within the entrepreneurial world, we openly accept. Of course you're going to pivot. You should be pivoting. You should be adapting and innovating. And I really appreciate the fact that you called that out, because we have to be the ones that show ourselves grace. We have to be the ones that acknowledge, nobody else gets this. Other entrepreneurs will fully understand it, but others may not, which leads me to something that I love about being an entrepreneur is finding that flow state. I find that all my friends who work in corporate environments, their job is their job. Whereas as an entrepreneur, I have a higher calling. I'm not doing this because I just want to make money. I'm doing this because it lights my soul on fire. Like, people always ask why I have so much energy. It's because I love this stuff. Genuinely, if I didn't, it would be so much harder. Flow is obviously a core part of what you do, especially in your Feng Shui business. You've got to talk to us about that concept of flow and how you help bring that to life for people.
Yeah, like you said, it's just something that is a higher calling. Really, I believe that we bring good energy to everything that we do, whether the smallest detail or the biggest challenge that somebody has. And flow and finding flow, that's the name of my Feng Shui business, is because that's what we really help people do. And I believe that, so think of flow this way, right? You can have a river, right? And a river can be a dry riverbed with just a trickle of water and there's no flow. Or you can have, cascades and rapids, and then the river is going so fast that you can't manage it. And what we're really trying to do with, what I think flow is how energy moves is to try to regulate that, because every day is different, right? And so we are all trying to sort of normalize, and that doesn't mean that it's always just perfectly calm or moving at a certain speed, but what we're trying to do is just allow things to evolve and to feel good. And with Feng Shui, you walk into a room and you can say, I love the energy in here. I feel really comfortable. Or we've all walked into a space and kind of, recoiled and said, oh, this doesn't feel good. I don't like the energy here. It doesn't, and you might not think of it as not liking the energy here, but you can tell when something's not right for you, and that's listening to yourself and into your body. And so what we try to do in all that we're doing is sort of create positive energy at the right level.
It's so interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense, especially intuitively. Even if a lot of us can't articulate that, I find it on when it's not Tuesdays, I'm not in the podcast studio. I am always at a coffee shop. I love coffee shops. It's the extreme extrovert in me. I need to be around other people and I need to be around that energy. But Andrea, truth be told, there's certain coffee shops that when I sit down, I'm just like, yeah, I want to work. I want to do all the things from here today. Certain coffee shops I sit in, and I can't really articulate why, but I just don't feel as productive in those spaces. And I always wonder why. And I'm excited to go here with you. I've never explored this on the air with a guest, but part of me always fights the paradox between, I've heard quotes about like, discipline is more important than motivation because discipline is doing things even when you don't feel like it. And as an entrepreneur and someone who offers myself a lot of grace, I also am aware and respect when I don't feel like it, so to speak. And so that balance of forcing things versus finding flow, it's so important to me. I would imagine through the line of work that you do, you have really interesting insights into that balance of forcing versus flowing. How do we do that? Because let's face it, we can't go through all of life just doing things when we feel like it. So how the heck do we navigate it?
Yeah, I don't really love doing laundry or mowing the lawn or all those things. And, you do have to have some discipline about that. And, I do think that part of it is about the big picture. And also, there's a difference between forcing something and I think sort of leaning into something that makes you, is not your favorite thing or is a little bit uncomfortable, right? And there are different ways to do that, right? If you know that you have to do a task that you really don't like, for instance, I'm terrible at the accounting and the billing part of my job, but it's pretty important as a business owner to understand where the financials are at and if people are paying me and things like that. And so what I do in that case is I really dedicate certain time each month or each week to see where things are at. And I also ask for help from others who that's really their strength to help me through that. And those are kind of the ways that I look at things like that. But forcing yourself, Feng Shui, there's a way of thinking that is basically that everything unfolds as it should. And you have to make space for things. So forcing something is never good. But finding ways to approach tasks that have to be done, because we all have those, in a way that you can kind of plan for it or get ready or give yourself a reward when you're done. Those are the ways that I look at doing things. But if you're sitting in a coffee shop and you're just like, not vibing it here, it just doesn't feel right, that I wouldn't push. I would either go take a walk around the block, find someplace else, or just really allocate when are you going to tackle that, right? So that you know that you can do it, because something hanging over your head is often worse than the actual doing of something.
Yeah, so well said. I really appreciate those insights. I'll also add, we can also reward ourselves in those moments. You talk about the laundry or mowing the lawn or doing finances in our businesses. It's also fun to have the pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. I think that's another way that we can start to get through those things. I want to ask you, I'm always so self-conscious about this as a podcast host, is that I imagine so many listeners tune into episodes and it always sounds like guests have it all figured out and just like everything is going so perfectly. Andrea, especially in your case, people will look at, you've got a portfolio of 3 amazing businesses that all deeply serve the clients that you work with. Give us the reality behind the scenes. What was the order of operations? What were those growth points? What were the pivot points for you to say, I can take on more, I'm going to comfortably explore this idea? What did that look like?
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. I said that we learn a lot from our mistakes, and, one of the things that is one of the funniest stories that I have, which created growth and pivot for me, was at home Watch Madison. What we do is we take care of people's homes while they're away. And that can be if they're on a vacation or if they're snowbirds, or maybe they're just busy professionals, or they live somewhere else and then we take care of their home where we're located. And I lost the keys to one of my clients' house. And, people hand over their alarm codes to us, the keys to their house. And it's pretty important stuff. and I lost the keys to one of my clients' houses, and I spent 48 hours completely trying to figure out. I tore my car apart. I tore all of my things apart. I walked around because we walk outside of each of the properties. I walked around the outside of the house. I even hired somebody who has a metal detector to come and help me try to find the keys. And finally, I had to actually tell my client, call my client and say, I lost the key to your house. I have no way to get in and check and make sure that, to deliver what we're supposed to deliver. And talk about a moment where you're really humbled and you figure that you need to maybe do some pivoting from that. My client was incredibly gracious. She laughed and said, "Oh my gosh, at this point in my life, if that's the worst thing that happens, no one was hurt doing this, right? So let's not worry about it." And so she sent me to pick up a key from her sister, who I actually happened to have worked with previously in a corporate setting. So not only did I have to embarrass myself by telling somebody I had previously worked with that I screwed up and I lost my keys to your sister's house, but I had to actually live through that and go through that with my client, and really sort of that was, those are kind of really big pivots, right? So, I think that's a funny one that we can laugh at now, but I lost, 2 nights of full sleep on that one. And I think the other thing was just how do we know that we're pivoting? And really, for instance, Lightsome was born out of a pivot from Watch Madison. And really, home watch, that the industry that serves and being concierge for people's homes is very seasonal. And I don't know about you, but my mortgage is due 12 months out of the year. And so I started to look for other ways to expand and grow our revenue streams, and started to take care of properties after somebody had died and their home was unoccupied. And that led me to this whole world of helping people organize and manage their estates. And as soon as I found out about them, I was, the light bulbs just went off. Oh my gosh, this is really what I was destined to do. So, one thing leads to another, and you just have to listen.
Yeah, so well said. And it is really cool hearing how one thing builds upon the other. That's a story. I've actually heard it in over 1,200 episodes. I've only heard it a few times, Andrea, in that seasonal businesses can be a blessing in disguise, because you start to ask those questions of how do I fill in the other parts of the year? How do I fill in potential revenue gaps? It's really cool to hear that natural evolution. But I'll call out that part of it only comes from the natural evolution, only comes from the fact that you were intentional in sitting down and asking yourself those questions, and that's when you started to find those answers. I want to ask you this. Listeners know a little bit of behind the scenes. We ask every guest, what's your zone of genius? And I love your answer, Andrea, because you gave me so much to chew on with what your zone of genius is. But I'll tell you transparently, what I took away is you're always looking to make things better. And I think that is very much the antidote to people who are sitting in the mud saying, oh, this is how things are. You just naturally want to make things better. So this is partly a philosophical, but definitely an entrepreneurial question, is how do you balance always wanting to make things better versus just saying, it's good enough, I'm going to get it out there? Because you not only are an improver and an optimizer, you very much are a launcher. You very much take action and put things into the world. So I want to hear about that balance, because I think that's also part of your superpower.
That's so funny that you say that, because my background is in corporate marketing, and so I work with graphic designers who always, it's never good enough. And I add this saying, it's good enough, get it out the door, right? Because you still have to, be in production. So, I think one of the tests, I have several litmus tests that I would give something, because there is, how far do you take something? And I think the litmus test that I use is, would I pay for that myself? Right? Is that something that, how far does that have to be? And what is my, what would my client do? Would a client buy that? Would I pay for that myself? And to go from there. But we're, and I think that a lot of times entrepreneurs, they think, oh, I want to have this business and I have to solve a problem. And I don't think about it as solving a problem. I just think about what is it that we can make better. And sometimes that's really something small. But as we all know, a small tweak can completely change perspectives on something. And then sometimes it's a big thing, like a whole new product or service, but maybe to a different audience. And so it's a fine line, but I think it's sort of, would I pay for this? And I think about things in terms of like a tachometer in a car, right? So my longtime mentor, Sandy, says a weakness is a strength overdone. In other words, you take a strength and then once you redline it, it becomes a weakness. And so I try to think about that red line with when we're improving something, right? Where is it a strength or where is it just overdone? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I've never thought about it that way. And as a visual person, I love the tachometer. To me, it's especially the fact that you called it out as the red zone, because we are all apt to go there as entrepreneurs. There are no limits to the depths in which we will go to pursue an idea, to chase skills, to learn things. We've all gone down YouTube rabbit holes when we want to learn a new software or new skills. So I think it's so important to think about, where is that red zone? How do I harness my strengths to the point where they enable me to grow? It's such a powerful insight there, Andrea. I will also say that I knew time would fly by with you today. I didn't quite expect it to fly by this quickly. So I've got to squeeze in this question because I ask it at the end of every episode. And that is, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys, and knowing that you are very much one of us. You are a multi-time entrepreneur, rocking and rolling, shipping things. What's that one piece of advice that you want to leave them with today?
Yeah, and I think it was, when I read the information, it was about what's really actionable, and I think that's just it. Is figure out that, I hate to say that problem that you want to solve, but how can you make someone's life? How can you improve? How can you take something and improve upon that? And And my motto is good people know good people. So surround yourself with good people, and to reflect back to Brian, the riches are in the niches. So whatever you find, go in and try to go deep in that niche around what your core purpose is, and just get out there and try it. Right? You got to put yourself out vulnerable, and again, and I've said it a bunch of times today, and follow your intuition while you're doing it. Listen to yourself, listen to your gut, let your gut guide you. That's the best tachometer we have.
Yes, so well said. I appreciate all of those little nuggets of knowledge from you here today in our conversation. You bring up niches, and honestly, Andrea, talking to you about your entrepreneurial mindset is one thing, but I really enjoyed going deep into all of your different businesses, how you operate. I'm really excited for listeners to check out the show notes, and I'm going to ask you to drop those links on us in just a second, but I think it's so cool to see what these businesses are. We could pick any of these businesses and probably talk for hours at length about all of these things. I think it's really cool how much you focus in on making people's lives better with each of those businesses, and they all have that strong emphasis on it. So Andrea, for listeners who do want to check out your business portfolio and all the cool things you're up to, drop those links on us. Where should they go from here?
You bet. Lightsome.com is Lightsome Estate Concierge. Watch Madison is Watch Madison, and flowcurator.com is Finding Flow Feng Shui.
Yes, and listeners, you already know the drill. We're putting all of those links down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. So if you're driving, don't worry, don't try to punch in any URLs while you're on the go. We are dropping those in. You can click right on through to all three of Andrea's businesses. We're also linking to her personal LinkedIn, because if I want to humble brag for Andrea for just a second, she does so much good in the world for business owners and entrepreneurs. She's such an enabler of other people taking action on not only their dreams, times, but something that has revealed itself as so core to Andrea's mission, taking action on things that make other people's lives better. She's been on board. She's been a board president of different nonprofits. She's serving in so many different capacities. She's spoken on stages to hundreds of people at a time. So Andrea's doing a lot of good in the world. So we're dropping her business links, but also her LinkedIn down below. Otherwise, Andrea, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
It's been a blast. Thank you so much, Brian.